Welcome back to Off the Record, On the Rocks. Each episode, Michael Toner and Ankarino Lara discuss the nuances of all things crypto, from Bitcoin to Ethereum, altcoins to DeFi, and NFTs to the metaverse. Cutting through the noise and keeping it simple as we pour ourselves into the future.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another Off the Record on the Rocks with my friend, Mr. Ankarino Lara. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's Friday, June 2nd. I don't know what happened to May, but it's gone. And I am just thrilled. What a week we've had, huh?
It is crazy. By in May, go away. June has sailed in. Right on cue. Everything we've been talking about, covering what's happening on Capitol Hill, the regulatory market around crypto. We've got Apple rumors swirling for the past few weeks, this debt ceiling and fear and debt looming over us. And here we are at the 11th hour, right as we enter June. The bill gets passed, the votes get secured, the debt gets kicked down the road for 2 more years. Everybody gets what they want. Seems like everybody's in a good mood. Seems like both sides are kind of feeling pretty good about this thing and clearing the way for sprinkle a little Apple magic come next Monday. Conditions are right. Talk to me about the debt ceiling and what's going on to usher in the summer here.
You know, there's so many things that we say on so many episodes, but I want to call out the fact that it's probably obvious, but we've been saying it for so long. You know, the theater of the debt ceiling, the fear, the words that get thrown around, the catastrophe that's brewing. I mean, the words get like more and more sensational as it gets closer and closer, and as Janet Yellen keeps going. For me on this debt ceiling thing, honestly, you know, Joe Manchin is kind of that oddball Democrat, right, out of West Virginia. And when Joe Manchin is up there talking about how happy he is about the debt ceiling bill, that's how I know it's good for, quote, everybody. And I guess when it comes right down to it, right, the government, just like us, if allowed to procrastinate, we will. So unless you give yourself that arbitrary deadline and say, hey, on June 1, I got to turn in my paper, I got to finish my project, like, you know, I got to create that prospectus for the board, then you kind of don't have that urgency. So it's just the natural flow of the government. But that first little notch of check, the debt ceiling has been averted, kick the can down the road, doesn't that just pave the way, like right into all the things you just mentioned, but ultimately into next week when Apple unveils its version of reality and new worlds for us all to see? And will the economy just like get gasoline poured on it? I have a feeling it will.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yes, debt ceiling check. Markets getting steadied. Got some job numbers today. Everyone feeling good about the debt ceiling, so markets get stabilized. You've got some new regulation. We'll talk about Ripple versus the U.S. government. You've got the candidates hard hitting the trail. We covered the DeSantis Twitter announcement, and he has gone off on the campaign trail. So the candidates are getting ready, and it feels like the rocket is on the launch pad, ready to go. Debt ceiling, markets, regulation, politics, new candidates. And here comes Facebook and Meta this week breaking through, saying, don't forget about us. Don't forget about us. We know Apple's got a big announcement on Monday. So widely rumored to be Apple and Tim Cook to be unveiling their newest Apple reality glasses in Cupertino on Monday. And here comes Meta with this like Quest Pro 2 for $499. Like even it just feels like this ridiculous attempt to stay relevant in the Apple versus Meta battle for XR.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been on the Apple side of this. We've talked about the hardware and the recognition of your face and the fact that we really already are in a metaverse, in a walled garden of Apple's design, which is an unfortunate, ironic point because Facebook for many, many years enjoyed that moniker. Facebook was, quote, a walled garden, a social network that was safe. And somehow they've thought they could translate that into a full hardware company. And that article about their Quest, whatever, for $500, and it's like coming at some point this year, maybe. They don't even really say. They just kind of want to throw a little news story in there just to see maybe what the temperature was. But what got me is it basically just said how much money they're spending. Like the article was basically, and they said it in ways that you would market lemonade, at a store as a kid. You'd say, "Hey, just buy yours today, just $4.99." You don't say $5, you say $4.99. I'm reading this article and like they spent 4.99 billion. Like who or 3 point who does that? Like why are they using these weird numbers and why are they telling us this? And by the way, how is it they're spending a $1.25 billion a month since the start of the year? I mean, that is, I guess, because they're not a hardware company, so they must be making bespoke chips somewhere. I mean, are they getting chips from China? Is Xi Jinping just playing every side of the metaverse and supplying chips to Apple as well as to Google as well as to Meta as well? Is everyone using a Chinese chip to make the metaverse? I don't know. Or are they all
It,
being made here in Silicon Valley? They're not really saying where the hardware is coming from. So I'm wondering if it costs that much, is it because they're shipping it in, or is it because it's true R&D? That's why I don't know.
yeah, I do know that Apple made a wave in terms of using augmented reality to announce this WWDC press event, and really I think signaling that they're coming hard. Code New Worlds was the tagline, and think about that juxtaposed against Meta and the metaverse and these worlds that supposedly Zuckerberg had imagined and is pouring billions into, and Apple saying Code New Worlds. And when you say that hardware is Apple being a hardware company. So software is great. Facebook was great. Meta's great for community, but it's the hardware, it's the phone that we use to consume it on. So when you talk about coding new worlds and the new ability to within augmented reality and then layer in the hardware that Apple can bring, that's when things get really interesting, and that sets us right up for the Morgan Stanley versus Goldman Sachs debate. These guys also swinging their weight behind Morgan Stanley coming out with crazy, new Apple targets to hit 190 on their stock price because Reality Pro is going to be a $20 billion platform. That coming from Apple Insider article this morning. So, WWDC looking good, Meta looking kind of like they're behind the ball here, and here comes Morgan Stanley, not to be outshone by Goldman Sachs and the banking side of what we've talked about Apple can bring to this new world. So what's your take here on Morgan Stanley throwing their name behind?
Well, so just to me, it feels so much like it's well, to use the word desperation in the case of Morgan Stanley probably is too heavy. I would use the word desperation in the case of Meta because, like you said, these are guys who are on the nose. Like Zuckerberg is going so all in on quote unquote metaverse that he changes the name of his company to Meta, which already feels desperate in and of itself. And then we're going to spend billion and everything else. But we need to scoop Apple, so we're going to make a press release. Well, Morgan Stanley this week, I mean, it was over the whole week because Morgan Stanley is kind of aligning themselves almost with the key talking points of Apple. Like they're steering right in, like as if they're totally in lockstep with marketing, right? Because it was earlier this week, just after actually we recorded last episode, that Morgan Stanley announces, hey, we're in the AI game too. We have this new trained chat GPT program we call Index GPT. And like reminding you that we have this really great way, if you're intimidated about trading and some of we have a little assistant that's going to help you make better decisions for your stocks and all these things. We're very modern, we're very, current. We're not Goldman Sachs, and we're not going to make an announcement next week with Apple about your new safe savings and staking account and whatever that's going to be. However, we are going to say that we love Apple. We have these new bullish targets. We have these new, and they just start trying to take that narrative. I mean, is Goldman going to be allowed to speak during the Cupertino event? Probably not. Maybe Morgan realized this Apple's event. They'll say what they're going to say, but this is our chance to come in and say stuff because I'm sure Goldman's under some gag order, and so they actually can't maneuver. So I feel like Morgan is actually doing something here, full well knowing there's going to be a vacuum, at least through the Apple event, where Goldman can't really say stuff, probably without busting some embargo they have. So I feel like it was very opportunistic and shrewd. The Meta stuff just seems desperate.
Yeah, agreed. But it definitely does feel like a, uh, you know, Tim Cook versus Mark Zuckerberg, and in this case, a more, the titans here, the Morgan Stanley and the Goldmans. And we've talked about when Apple announces this new world and whatever this new hardware device is that's coming, one of the things that gives them such a stronghold on that is their control around the ecosystem around music and entertainment and gaming, which, not to be outshone here, then shift gears to some big gaming news coming out this week with Nike incorporating Nike NFTs will be incorporated into EA Sports games. That was one headline that broke through. And then on the other side of that, you've got EA Sports versus Rockstar Games, and the rumors swirling that Grand Theft Auto will allow real money transactions to take place in this game. So here's two gaming companies going head to head in what feels like the setup of a new economy, of a new world, of I'm going to be able to buy my Nikes and I'm going to be able to wear them inside of my FIFA game. EA Sports, it's in the game. I mean,
Your
it's
shoes are
happening.
in the game. Yeah, I mean, and that one for me, let's just rewind a little bit because we were covering when Nike acquired. People might not remember that Nike acquired Artifact Studios. Artifact is the word spelled with no vowels, and it's kind of funny, right? It's like RTFKT. And I want to say that was a big buy, right? Wasn't that in like the high hundreds of millions? I don't think they ever disclosed it, but it was
Yeah, we never got the
speculated.
number.
High hundreds of say it was a billion. I don't know what it was, but acquired that, and this is now probably a couple of years ago. And so you wonder, right? Everyone was thinking, well, what's the end game here? And the unexpected combination of, and I want to say this might be, it's not a first because I know they were always dealing with athletes and then their relationships to shoe companies. So like, if Kobe's on the cover, he has to wear Adidas, and so they had to like manage those relationships. But in my memory of working in the gaming industry, the actual first time there's been a massive partnership. I'm talking about Nike, ostensibly the biggest shoe brand in the world, and then EA Sports, who owns the player rights to literally everything from, American basketball, baseball, to soccer internationally, to cricket. I mean, they literally have the entire world covered. So yeah, as soon as kids start to wear or to play their wearables, I don't even know what the right words would be for that, to wear their playables, to play their wearables in the game, and then to start streaming that. And I can see, God, Toner's got on those original Jordan, 86 Jordan blah, blah, blahs that he got. And there's only 20 of them. And I'm playing against a guy who's wearing those. That to me feels like a really big story and the obvious, like, sort of consolidation of these two important things, right? Gaming and NFTs. The Rockstar announcement by comparison, it just feels like these poor guys, GTA again, like GTA, like Facebook, used to own the space. GTA was the thing everyone looked forward to, and now they're mired down with delays. People want to know, will it be as open world as a Fortnite or some of these other open world games, an Elden Ring? Is it going to be, can I bring in my wearables? Can I do all these things? And all they're able to muster is, hey, when this comes out, like probably next year, there will likely be real money transactions. That's the article headline. And to me, it just felt like, wow, that is got to be one of the lamest things I've ever heard. That in that game there might be, even though it exists literally everywhere right now. Like, what are they saying? They're saying that they're going to maybe allow you to buy a motorcycle,
Yeah, it
maybe allow
was
you to buy. What are they talking about? It's
it
like
was
something a bunch of garbage.
it was extremely extremely vague. It was in a game rant, GameRant.com, talking about literally even the headline was weak is likely to have
I mean,
real money transactions. So you're right. It sounds like they're trying to make sure people know, hey, that's what we're trying to build. These kind of microtransactions inside the game, but it's not easy unless you do it on a public blockchain. And if you've got a
mm,
gaming company out there trying to build it on their own blockchain, then it's not uh, going to be distributed enough. At that point, it's not decentralized, and therefore it's not going to hit the mark given the market conditions that you clearly see getting set up. And I think just Nike and EA Sports really shows the power of coming from that direction, meaning
mm.
coming from the brand world to then partner with the gaming world versus, in this case, Rockstar trying to come into the Web3 environment from the gaming. And either way, I think the bridges are getting built, and no doubt when Nike's putting their weight behind it, and specifically talking about Nike NFTs. not just Nike products, but these are going to be on-chain NFT collections that
Hmm.
are now going to be in-game. That's a whole nother can of worms here, just a whole nother level of ownership. And when you talk about EA Sports having all the rights to the players, I didn't think about that. And you put it in the real life terms about, having to wear a certain brand on the cover of a magazine. But if EA has those digital rights, all of a
Hmm.
sudden the players find themselves in a really interesting spot, realizing that they don't own how to dress their avatar in the game. That when they signed that
Correct.
deal with Nike, now their avatar has to wear those Nikes. That seems strange, but it is something. I think we talk a lot about IP and the changing world of ownership here. Oh, I had one other point just to call out. When Nike acquired Artifact's bread and butter was in 3D.
Mm.
3D shoes, 3D and augmented reality of those products, creating digital twins. So just a shout out of like, that's really what got me into, and part of the reason we're here today talking about this was recognizing that immediately when Nike got involved with Artifact, that it had implications for this new world that's being built. Call it the metaverse, call it Apple Reality. I'm not sure, but I see it coming and have seen it coming.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, I mean, it does call into question how all of these different athlete contracts are being drafted, right? Because there's the digital, there's the physical, and we've talked about before this new term coming out, the phygital, which is how does the digital influence real and real influence digital, and do you need separate agreements? Because like you said, if I am the athlete in real life, I likely have a deal or multiple deals where when I walk into the stadium in my full drip, well, it's by Puma or Adidas or Nike, and maybe I'm carrying a smart water, and maybe I'm, whatever, like whatever it is that I do because I have to in the real world. But my digital version is now carved out, and maybe by default wears the stuff that I'm sort of supposed to in real life. But as a kid playing, you're effectively playing the avatar of that person. So maybe that then allows me to put the Adidas sponsored soccer player in Puma or vice versa. Or we'll see. Maybe the soccer federation is so hardcore that they like just won't even allow it. Like you can't put certain boots on Messi because they just won't allow it. We'll have to see. I mean, EA is big, Nike's big, but the players, associations are going to have to, as long as they're getting paid, they'll be happy. But someone's going to have to sign off on that one. I mean, it might be kind of tough, paperwork
Yeah,
standpoint.
I think also we've talked about specific sports. So let's zoom back out for a second, and then we're going to move on to the regulation stuff. But zooming back out, come back to Apple, Meta, these new worlds that are getting created, EA Sports. I talked about gaming and sports and music. And so here we are moving straight from gaming and into sports. We've talked about Apple and their MLS and the live streaming of that actual sports game and how you consume that entertainment and that sport. And now EA Sports, publisher of FIFA and Madden and NHL, just think about how these companies are now coming from two opposite ends of the digital and the physical. It's mind blowing to see it happen. And I'll make one other point there too. We haven't spent much time here today talking about AI. I mean, I feel like we spent a whole episode talking about AI, but layer that into this whole thing where now the world that Apple is creating, this new immersive environment that you're going to be able to step in. It's almost it's going to be the operating system for AI. Like, hey Siri, I want to play FIFA. Load the game, you know?
Hmm.
And think we talked a little bit about Siri, but I'm just now picturing how all of this comes together with the hardware, with the technology, with these new immersive experiences, 3D, augmented reality, live sports events, augmented with data and information, and AI is going to be the sort of the operating system for it. I'm going to be able to
You
tell
know,
Siri what it
that's a
is I
good
want to
way.
do.
It's a good way of thinking about that. I would, the AI part to me screamed through in Apple's announcement, right? The announcement didn't say the word metaverse. Yeah, the announcement didn't say the word reality, even though we had this feeling that maybe it would be called Apple Reality or something, something, right? Some name for these goggles. But when it says code new worlds, well, the knee-jerk response for most people is, well, I don't know how to code. Well, that doesn't matter anymore,
Yeah,
right?
now you do.
Because now I can just speak
Yeah,
the prompt that I want to generate the code.
good
And I
call.
can tell you firsthand, companies in the internet space, I won't name any, have made leaps and bounds with their engineering and development because, gosh, every line of code has been written a million damn times, right? It's just a matter of calling and prompting the AI to provide you the lines of code to solve what the problem you're articulating. And here's the part where it gets really wild because the coding new worlds, I think, is going to start to dovetail into role playing. And I say that in the sense of like the gaming sense, yes, but when you prompt AI by telling it who it's supposed to be,
Oh yeah.
I found that you can actually get a better, obviously a better and more direct response about it. So if I say, hey, Chat GPT, you are an engineer in Cupertino working for Apple, and you are going to be creating and you know what I mean? You can basically kind of put the AI into a mode
Right.
where it knows then where to go look for its data sources to provide you information. So when I see that Code New Worlds, and I imagine the XR goggles, and I imagine you hitting that little thing and saying, Siri, generate a landscape that looks like a cartoon version of blank, and put the purple volcano in the background, shooting out Bitcoin coins and lava, and then let's make you're going to be able to just articulate and describe and let Reality Pro code new worlds for you. That to me, they're basically telling you
Well done.
AI is the new OS, and that's going to be
I
just mind blowing for everybody.
I am ecstatic that we just pulled that apart because you are 100% spot on. Apple does not mince words, and to put the word code into that announcement and feel confident enough that the reader of that wouldn't be scared of it, that they would
Hmm.
be like, oh, I guess I'm going to be able to code these new worlds.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to be able to do it. It gives you the confidence of, oh, they're I cannot wait till Monday to see how this all shakes out. And then what? What's the timeline look like? When's the product going to be ready? When's it shipping? How quickly? And it probably won't be till September. It probably won't be till the fall. So again, I'll stick to my buy in May and go away because I think come September when all of this stuff really, and I know it's easy to keep reaching out a little bit here, but this announcement is going to be huge. June 5th, it will be massive. It will usher in the new AR era, the new immersive internet. I am confident of it. I'm as confident as Morgan Stanley is. Um, and
Jamie Dimon's been buying Apple stock like a maniac. He said this is going to the ceiling, and if it doesn't, I'll keep buying until it does.
so, speaking of one of the other richest men in the world, I want to shift gears a little bit to the regulatory markets. We've taken this, Apple versus Meta, Morgan Stanley versus Goldman. The other one happening still here in DC that we're expecting some news is the Ripple versus the Securities and Exchange Commission. So some news breaking last week, I think after we recorded, somebody digging into the footnotes of some testimony, some draft report. I don't even know where it was coming from, but I did zero in on this, that if that ruling comes out and XRP is not considered a security, in the footnote, it talked about the Heinemann test. And this was kind of like blocked out. I don't know if you actually looked at it. It was crazy to see what was redacted and what got out.
Mhm.
And there's this phrase that was like, according to the Heinemann test. And I recalled even from a couple of weeks ago, you talking about as you get into the regulatory world, they will attempt to find a word, something to call it. We were joking about the de-dollarization and branding that, but here comes the Heinemann test to now be the Heinemann versus the Howey test, which is today how the SEC decides whether or not something is considered a security. So does the Heinemann test all of a sudden leave out XRP and Bitcoin? Who else gets lumped in that? Ethereum? And what does that mean as we go zoom all the way back to debt ceiling check, markets now stable check? You've got regulatory coming here with maybe a ruling, and there's another piece of legislation that I don't know that we caught from a couple weeks ago, the The new Securities Clarity Act also being introduced. So welcome to June. I think we are in for a ride here over the next couple weeks to figure out how Apple and Nike and EA Sports and Rockstar Games are going to do all of those microtransactions. Are they going to do them on Polygon? Are they going to do them on XRP? We're about to find out.
Yeah, we're about to find out. I mean, look, these guys they've dug their heels in for years. These are a bunch of executives from Silicon Valley companies who run Ripple, which is the name of the company, and their token is called XRP. Really, at the time, it was marketed as a corporate stable coin, kind of, right? It was a way that businesses could resolve transactions in a blockchain. It's not really that different, at least conceptually, from things like Tether or USDC and these different types of quote stable coins, which we know is a category that the SEC doesn't like, right? And the legislation may be murky in that sense, in that, yeah, sure, they're going from the Howey test to the Hyman test. They're creating all these new tests. Everyone agrees if there's some almost 100-year-old test, well, it's probably not a good one for modern usage, right? So I think everyone kind of understands that philosophically. So you got to call it something. But when it comes to things like securities, we got a pretty clear sense in the way that Gary Gensler has been going down the road, just extorting money from all these projects. But they got locked up in court with Ripple. And, if you could look to other countries for indicators, right? Like China likes to let the market run, then suddenly make everything illegal, then come out with their favorite one as a government owned and backed, business for NFTs or for their CBDCs. So, I wouldn't put it past the government to say, well, we tried the Hamilton project over here at MIT, but that got soiled because of FTX and Gary Gensler. And then we're trying this other thing and we're trying this other thing.
Plan
But
B.
maybe they kind of go, hey, you guys seem like you know what you're doing. What if we let you integrate, and maybe XRP ends up becoming the platform for the IRS or for FedNow, or they might just be trying to test them to see who we're going to bring on sides, right? Who's going to be our designated stablecoin guy. We could see it going there. But like you said, what's interesting, though, is they're all going to have to make a choice, all the companies you just listed off. Which blockchain are they going to go with? Which currency? How are they going to do in-game purchases? How are they going to do in-worlds or metaverse purchases? They're going to have to make a decision, and they're probably already making them, but at the same time trying to pave the regulatory road enough that they end up don't getting hamstrung down the line, because these companies are like, you can't tell Apple that you're not going to be able to buy things in games in their app store. There's no way that Apple's going to let that happen.
Absolutely not.
So there's a story here that we don't know that's happening behind the scenes, and we just get those nuggets, right? Like, hey, XRP, there's a little bit of a win in court, and we're still alive. And it's like, okay, well, there's a reason why we're being told that. They want us to be comfortable with these guys, right? I feel like they're going to survive in one shape or form.
This was from Forbes. Confident, quote, confident Ripple CEO helps the XRP price suddenly outperform Bitcoin. And this goes on, it talks about it was in 2020 that the SEC sued Ripple, accusing the company of selling 1.3 billion in unregistered securities via its XRP cryptocurrency. And the rest of the article goes on to say, quote, I feel very confident we'll see a decision from the courts this year. In fact, I think I would guess that it will be in weeks, not months. And then the article goes on to say, and pointed to June 13th as a potential date to watch for the public release of documents. So mark your calendars. Pretty sure they tell you how it's going to happen. And June 13th, we're going to get some answers here on XRP, what that means for those brands. Also, as you were talking about the companies having to choose their coin, don't forget about Yuga. Makes me bullish on ApeCoin. We haven't talked about Yuga, but they built that coin. And remember when they did the drop? I had to do a full and proper KYC in order to be eligible for that ApeCoin drop. Boom. They are already there when they turn that game on.
And KYC is something that it gets thrown around a lot. KYC stands for Know Your Customer, which means you have to provide basically full government issued documentation about who you are so that the government can know what you're buying. That, I think, is an acronym that literally disappears this year. You're not even going to hear it again because literally everything is going to have it built in.
Yeah.
And there was a moment in time when people could do for real peer-to-peer, and maybe there still is. You meet somebody at a Starbucks, I'll give you some money in a duffel bag, you give me a thumb drive, I verify, I go. But KYC for every normal business who wants to get tax revenues, yeah, it's just going to be a default thing. The default is you carrying a driver's license with your phone in your pocket.
Something to look for, and I've made a couple of these predictions, something to look for at Monday's announcement, and then we can wrap it up here. But I've seen a couple of ads from Apple recently running on television commercials, and they are all the privacy lock, the little Apple with the lock coming up. And when we talk about facial recognition, we talk about the hardware and what you're describing here of it's going to be built in, quote unquote, built in. When I log into my bank account, for example, I use face recognition, right? That is being powered by Apple. They did it with the banks first. I open up my bank with the Apple-driven AI, right? That's scanning my face. What if that could be opened up, right? What if that, from a developer perspective, could now be, me, Michael Toner, building an app saying, hey, Siri, build me an app that allows a user to log in using their face. All of a sudden, that becomes part of their developer kit. It becomes part of their coding new worlds to actually give open access, like API-driven access to this new privacy, which I think you're going to see and hear that. Anytime they start talking about XR, anytime they start showing any people and humans in an augmented scenario, you will hear the privacy, you will hear the trust, you will hear security is our biggest concern, and they will tell you how they're going to do it to make sure that people are feeling comfortable, because there's a lot of things. I have a lot of questions about how somebody's going to be able to view me and my information in this new world that they're coding. I will leave it there, but final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts. I mean, look, let's all pay close attention to next week. It'll be not just be Monday. It'll probably be rolling over the course of the week. There's going to be Goldman banking, implications that may not be overt. That's going to be a secondary story, so I think it's really powerful. And then, yeah, now that you say that, I'm thinking, well, from a privacy standpoint, if these XR goggles have to see my eyes to unlock
sounds like WorldCoin, doesn't it?
my new world, then I can only code new worlds if I put these on and it recognizes who I am. And now I am in my private my new world that I am every day coding. And that's something where everyone is now going to have their own unique bespoke version of what I think we all think of as a metaverse, where maybe the greatest trick is going to be that there isn't one giant metaverse that everybody Ready Players One into, like the Oasis in the movie, in the book. Instead, it's everyone has their new world, and the metaverse is a collection of worlds. That actually is what we move forward. It's like the constellation as opposed to the solar system, which I think is it's gonna be super exciting. And then week after that, let's hope that Ripple can say a few things about their SEC guidelines. They couldn't do it in the first week of June, so they'll pick the second.
June 5th, June 13th, we'll do it again. Welcome to summertime 2023. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you again soon, man.
That's all the time we have for Off the Record, On the Rocks. Join us next week for news and all things crypto. Bring up the house lights. It's last call.